Well, it's July in the farmhouse garden, and as you can see, the hollyhocks are looking spectacular. At this time of year, there's always lots to do in the garden, and I find it's best to make it a regular daily routine to go over the garden and spend at least 15 minutes a day weeding. It's very much like housework. If you leave it to pile up, it becomes overwhelming. Let's have a look around here. As you can see, we've got bindweed that's appeared over the weekend since I last picked over this border. So I'm just going to pick that out. As you can see, bindweed's a real problem in hollyhocks. It tends to go right up the stems and it twines itself around the stem, as you can see here. And if you're not careful, it actually strangles the flower. If you pull this out, it probably end up pulling the flower down, as I have here. So actually what I'm going to do with the rest is cut it out. Just going to snip through the bindweed so it just dies. It will look a little unsightly, but actually it's much better than it pulling the flower over. Well, I've now spent about 15 minutes pulling the bindweed and cutting the bindweed out of the hollyhocks, and also picking up some of the dead leaves that have fallen off the hollyhocks. At this time of year, particularly when we've had a dry spell like we had for the last couple of weeks, the hollyhocks do start to lose some of their leaves. Some of this is due to rust, and some of them are just old leaves that drop off. So if you see leaves like this, they will just come off. So you can tidy the hollyhocks up, and then they'll produce some new leaves. As you can see, there are quite a lot on the ground. So I'm just starting to clear these up, because if you leave them around, they can look a little unsightly, and if they've dropped off because of rust, which ours have, then you'll reduce the amount of rust around the plants if you pick the leaves up and compost them. Some people don't like to compost leaves with rust because they think you can reintroduce the rust, but to be fair, I've never managed to grow hollyhocks without rust, and so we do compost ours because our composting process is quite slow. And we don't put compost on the hollyhocks anyway because they like it quite tough. So here's the stuff that I've removed. To do this, I wore a pair of gloves because you sometimes come across brambles and you don't want to get thorns in your hand. These are really nice, these ones. I bought these actually recently. I bought about 3 pairs of them. They're quite tough and the thorns don't tend to go through them. These are also very useful. I have a pair of snips. They're brilliant for cutting through the bindweed and cutting through bramble, and also for deadheading roses. So here's the stuff that I've taken. It's a mixture of bindweed and dead leaves and a couple of hollyhock casualties where I was a bit over vigorous pulling the bindweed out, but I've cut those off and the hollyhocks will reshoot. Well, here you are. I've popped all the weed into the truck. I find these plastic buckets very useful when I'm weeding. Weeding is often most people's least liked task in the garden, and I must admit, for me, it is one of the tasks I don't enjoy. So the way I motivate myself to do it is I use the Fly Lady system in the house to do the housework, and I work in 15-minute bursts. So I try and make sure I do 15 minutes weeding every day. Or sometimes if I'm not feeling even less motivated to weed, I'll just say, well, I need to fill one of these buckets. Once I've done that, I can stop. But what I find is once I've actually started, I just keep going and keep resetting the timer and refilling the bucket, or I get the wheelbarrow. Sometimes the hardest thing is to actually get started. So I found that using the Fly Lady system in the house has really enabled me to get on top of the garden using a similar system of working in 15-minute bursts and using a timer. Anyway, I hope you found these tips helpful. If you've enjoyed, please hit subscribe. Any comments are very welcome, or anything you'd like us to cover. Thank you for watching.